Max. But wait till I say okay, because we've got to make sure it's broadcasting. Okay, welcome everyone in the rest of the world. This is Larson Training Centers, and this is a Hangout on Air with Father Max Oliva, the best Jesuit in the state of Nevada.
And the worst.
And the only. Father Max is going to talk about honesty in the workplace and a little bit about his history, what brought him here to Las Vegas, and we'll go over Chapter 3, why honesty is important. And it's especially important for the students here because trust is the most important thing in employment, especially for our students. And we're going to start with introducing ourselves. Father Max.
I'm Edward Edge from Indio, California.
I'm Fred from Seattle, Washington.
Cody from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Matt Tyler from Provo, Utah.
David Bergere from Reno, Nevada.
Nicholas from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Israel Arvidas from LA, California.
Cesar Perez from New Mexico.
Cedric Kearns, Las Vegas.
Greg Walls, Las Vegas.
Chef from Colorado.
Okay.
Malika from Inglewood, California. I'm Dodie Harris from St. Louis, Missouri.
Just West from Las Vegas, Nevada. Jamie from Sacramento.
Deborah Lewis from Louisiana. Tony D'Angelo, native Las Vegas.
Gabriela Peterson from California. Anita Sotoka from Springfield, Missouri.
John Lundell from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Angela Kirkpatrick from Anchorage, Alaska.
Ah.
Bill McCune, heavily Philadelphia, but now Las Vegas.
Bill is a Villanova graduate.
California.
Bill is a Villanova graduate also.
And Scott Fitzgerald, native Las Vegas.
Billy Cross from Chicago, Illinois.
Okay, and you are?
Rob Felton from Minneapolis.
Where's that other person?
She went with Sharon.
Oh. All right. And Catherine Bevelacqua is here. Okay. All right. So Father Max, you're on.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm also from California. Grew up in Los Angeles County, and came from a family that, let's see how I can describe it. My father came from a blue-collar background in San Francisco, what's known as the North Beach Italian neighborhood. Grew up with the DiMaggio brothers and other people who lived in that area. Dave Castellagio, who's a priest here and also grew up there. My mother, however, came from a very wealthy background from Marin County, across the Golden Gate Bridge on the other side there, back when there was lots of land and less houses. Anyway, they got married, and we started out in San Francisco, and then after the Second World War, they decided to move down to Los Angeles, and of course I went with them. I was 6. No choice. My father was a very successful businessman. He had a food brokerage company in Southern California, and I worked with him a few times during the summer, and that was really good, good experience. He had a very strong commitment to the virtue of honesty. I discovered this the hard way. When I was a teenager, I made a few, well, I didn't think they were exactly lies, but he saw them as lies, and so I got grounded a couple of times, and that's how I learned honesty is the best policy, because I didn't like getting grounded. He told me also, because he worked a lot, he was a salesman, and he had to build relationships with his customers, how the importance of how honesty leads to trust, and if you don't have trust, well, then you can't deal with somebody because you never know what they're going to do next. So then I went to college, and same college actually that Ed went to, although I was before him, and then his father also went there, who was before me, Santa Clara University near San Jose, California. you learn a lot about yourself in difficult circumstances, as I'm sure you can agree. After college, I had the opportunity to do a little traveling, and so I went to Europe, which was at that time the place to go if you had a grandmother who had a little extra money and kept funneling it towards you. Plus, I had worked during the summers, and so I was able to go there. I went with a guy who I knew from college, a fellow named Steve, who was an engineering major. Steve had a real interest in Jesuit history, so I belong to a religious order called the Society of Jesus, otherwise known as Jesuits. We're known mostly for education in the United States, universities, high schools, but also missionary work. I'm a missionary. I'm the only Jesuit here in Nevada, so that's it. So while traveling, Steve had this interest in Jesuit history, so we both wanted to go to, among other places in our trip, we wanted to go to Pamplona, Spain. He wanted to go there because that's the town where Ignatius of Loyola was injured in a fierce battle with the French. He was a soldier, and one of his legs was broken, and the other was he was injured in the other one as well. And he eventually had to leave the battlefield, and the French were so impressed with his bravery that they gave him the use of their own doctors, and then they brought him back to his brother's castle in Manresa, in the Basque Country, where he did his convalescence. So Steve wanted to go to Pamplona in order to go to the place where this historical event happened. I wanted to go to Pamplona because I wanted to run with the bulls.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was talking to a guy from Central America who we were taking a walk. It was another Jesuit, and he asked me if I'd ever been to Spanish-speaking countries, and I said, well, I spent some time in Spain when I was younger. And he said, where did you go? And I said, well, among other places, I went to Pamplona. And he said, did you run? And I said, I did, twice. Once sober. And he said, oh, you are an hombre, or you are loco, one of the two, right? So I learned, I have this kind of spirit of adventure in me that takes me into very interesting places all over the world. My first job after I got back from Europe and went in the Coast Guard for a while, and then went to work for a food cannery in San Jose, California, as a preparation for eventually going in with my father in his business. And I had an experience there that really gave me a real sense of how much I had learned from my parents. So I had my own territory. I was young. I was 25, 26 years old. But I was younger than that. I was 23. And the assistant sales manager quit unexpectedly, and therefore they had to shuffle everybody around. So being the youngest guy, they gave me what they thought would be the territory that I could do the least harm in. And that was Oregon, Washington, and Vancouver. So I had this expense account. I was 23 years old. I could stay at the best hotels, rent a car, really nice restaurants. And then when I'd come back, because of the way I was raised, I would sit down and I would itemize everything I had spent, right? Where I had gone and how much I had spent. And then I would turn it into the what they called the treasurer at that time, the company treasurer. Well, fine, everything's going along fine. And I don't know, a couple of months goes by, and one day I'm in my office, and one of the salesmen comes in and says, we need to talk. Now, this is a guy older than me, twice as old as me, been in the industry for years, And I said, sure, nice guy, could be kind of a mentor, And he said to me, you're making us look bad. And I said, I thought, what does he mean? Is it my sales? Are they going out well? And I said, well, what do you mean? What's the problem? And he said, you are too honest. Well, what was going on was that the other salesmen, some of them were padding their expense accounts, right, when they go on their trips, and I wasn't. And the treasurer was beginning to see, there's a discrepancy here between what people are spending on their, and so he'd gotten on their case about it, and so I was faced with a slight dilemma, right? Should I compromise my values because then I'd be accepted by these guys, or should I tell them, tough, this is the way I was raised, and that's the way it's going to be for me. And so, in a nice way, but in a firm way, I said, look, my parents raised me in such a way that honesty is very important to me, and so this is the way it's going to stay. And so there was some tension for a while in the office because of this experience, but eventually they kind of calmed down and accepted me and adjusted their own behavior, which was good. So I learned something, about myself in that. I learned that, my parents had really taught me well, and I also learned that that I had more courage than I thought I had, because it takes courage to say no to peer pressure, and that's what this was. This was peer pressure. This was not peer pressure. This was older pressure against a younger guy, right? But still, it's pressure, and so that was really helpful for me to learn about myself. Another virtue which became very important to me, and did you show them this book?
Yeah.
They've seen the book?
Yes.
Okay, so this some of them have it, right? So this was written, finished in 2009, after I had lived up in Alberta, Canada for 9 years and worked among people in the business community up there, mainly in the oil and gas industry. Met lots of great people who are really struggling to live their values to the best of their ability. When I first started working with them, I asked 15 different people in the working world. I asked them some basic questions. I was trying to figure out what to do with this idea I had to work with people in the business world, and on integration of faith and your work. And so I asked them some questions when I went in to interview each person. And the first question was, what are your basic faith values? Which made people, sit back and think, what are my basic faith values? These were men and women in various industries in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, right straight up above Montana. So the second question was, what are the ethical problems that you run into in your company, if you do run into any, and what are the ethical issues that you run into in your industry, whatever, auto industry or oil and gas or restaurant business or whatever. And the third question was, I had given them a copy of what's called a mission statement, where you line up, you tell people this is what I'm about, and what my vision is for what I'm proposing to do. So I gave them that, and I gave them a little short bio of me, and I said, so what do you think I can do here with what my skills are and what the needs are in the community? And so that's how the whole thing developed. Well, when I asked people about their basic faith values, I would say 90% of the people said that the most important virtue for me is integrity. Now, integrity is very connected to honesty, because if you're honest, then you're you're honest with yourself and honest with others, then you are living, in a life of integrity. So I want to say a little bit about integrity because it's a very important virtue. First of all, integrity presupposes having a sense of oneself, right? My own self-worth, which gets battered, as you know, by various circumstances. But you need to have some kind of sense of your intrinsic worth, right? If it hasn't come from significant people in your life, parents or teachers or whatever, then you have to find it somewhere. Now, I was lucky, I had good parents, but my father and I did have issues. We seemed to be friendly until I hit 14, and then we kind of went our separate ways. Years later, I read a very good book on father-son relationships, and the writer, Robert Bly, said, remember, he said, the eldest son, which I was in our family. There were 3 sisters and another brother after me. So the eldest son and the father are in love with the same woman, the mother. So if once the boy gets to be in his teens, and in my case, my mother and I were close friends, and my father and I had this kind of little bit of uncomfortable relationship. My father was very successful in business, but he was somewhat insecure at home. And so there was, and I didn't know this at the time, I didn't know this until much later when I read this article and thought, that's what was going on in our family. Yeah, my mother and I were tight, my father was jealous, and so there's some stuff there, right, that goes on, this family stuff, right? So my father, one of his, we have gifts, right? We all have gifts. We all have, sometimes the gift also has this dark side to it. So my father had a great sense of humor. He loved to pun, I'll give you an example. We're driving out in the country one day, and we saw some cattle up on the side of a hill, and my father says, "Don't let your meat loaf." So you gotta have that mindset to pick that one up. Don't let your meat loaf. Work. But my father, see, he had that sense of humor, but the dark side of the sense of humor was he could slip into this sarcasm, right? And you never knew when that was going to happen. It was kind of confusing growing up with this. He could slip into that sarcasm, and the sarcasm, which probably was fueled by anger or something, I don't know, would then get kind of cutting, right? He could put you down in front of your friends, which really bothered me when I was in high school. So I just kind of avoided him as much as possible. And so there was some damage in that to my self-image because of that. But I didn't know that. I mean, I wasn't thinking about all this. It was later when I look back. So I get I'm 24 years old. I'm sitting in my office at the cannery one day. I just come back from one of my sales trips, and this thought came into my head. I think I want to be a priest. What? I mean, that came out of nowhere. I was living, I was a bachelor. I had good friends. I had a social life. I had a car of my dreams. I had everything going for me, and then this thing seemed to come out of nowhere. But it had a real kind of power to it, and so eventually I gave notice to my boss and left the job and gave all my belongings to my father and went into the Jesuit seminary. And it was in there when I had a lot of quiet time to kind of reflect on my life that I began to see things differently, like patterns in my relationship to my father and mother and everybody else. But I did have this kind of, every once in a while, I had this kind of sense of not sure about myself and not sure I like myself. And so I went to see one of the older guys, older priests, who was really brilliant on understanding people's psyche. And I explained to him kind of what I said. Every once in a while, I get these feelings of lack of self-worth or something. I don't know why I'm getting this. I don't know where it's coming from. So he said, well, he said, I'll tell you what, he said, I'm going to give you a phrase to say every time you feel like something's off inside yourself. You know, whatever it is, he said, I'm going to give you this phrase to say. And he said, at first, he said, it's going to be all in your head. But you know, keep saying it, and come see me every once in a while, and well, let's see if something might eventually click for you, and it'll go from your head to your heart. So the phrase was, God loves me and nothing else matters. God loves me and nothing else matters. As the foundation of who I am, right? God loves me, nothing else matters, which means nobody else's opinion. I mean, you like to have opinions of you that are good, but that's not going to throw off my basic core, which is God loves me and nothing else matters. And that became gradually, as he said, went from my head to my heart. He also gave me some readings to help me to process this whole thing. But that became the center of my integrity, right? So if you have something that's really basic in the core of who you are, that you have a sense of yourself as being worthwhile, and if you're and that grows with experience, because every time you say no to something that's not good, you get stronger in yourself, and every time you say yes to something that's good and difficult to do, like the situation at the company when I said to the guy, I'm not changing, you're going to have to change. Well, I grew, that I became more comfortable in myself and more confident about myself. So integrity presupposes having a sense of oneself, being true to one's values, regardless of what others may think or say. And for me, that comes back to God's love. Now, if you're in AA, the 12 steps is what really helps people to get a sense of their self. I'm going to mention something more about AA in a minute. So you got to be grounded in something. Could be God, could be family, could be country, something that gives you a sense of meaning, that beyond yourself, right? Our sense of self must be grounded, in something. Now, integrity comes from the word integer, I-N-T-E-G-E-R, which means wholeness and completeness, right? Authenticity, self-respect, a sense of, this is who I am, and I'm comfortable with who I am. I may not be perfect, nobody's perfect, but I am doing my best to live my values, and therefore I am more and more a sense of wholeness. Moral courage comes in here, the courage of your convictions, ability to say no to that which seeks to harm you, and ability to say yes to that which seeks to help you. I looked at the 12 steps, which I like very much, and I noticed that there's quite a few of them that are related to honesty and integrity. So the first one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, that our lives had become unmanageable. We admitted, boy, that's a big step, right? When you say, I got a problem. That's a moment of real integrity and honesty. Honesty with self, really important. Number 4, I made a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself, right? A fearless, that's brutal honesty with yourself. I remember when I first moved up to Canada, I didn't move directly to Calgary. I moved on to a Blackfoot Indian reservation about an hour and a half outside of Calgary, out in the middle of the prairies. And And one day I met this fellow, and he said, I'm in the 12-step program, and I got to do number 4, and I want you to be the guy for me to do this with. And I said, sure. He was about maybe late 30s. So I thought, this was one of my first, so I thought, oh, this will be fine. Well, this will last about an hour. No, 2 days. After 2.5 hours, I was totally exhausted the first day, and I said, can we conclude this tomorrow? I need a break, because he was so honest. I mean, he went way back, and into his whole history and relationship to his parents and the alcohol that he was introduced to when he was young, and getting free of it, and he was doing really well when I met him. But he did this inventory. I mean, he just looked at everything, and then of course you have to tell it to somebody, and that's part of that courage, right? The courage of getting it outside yourself and telling it to somebody else, and trusting that that person won't reject you, put you down. So you got to pick somebody who really is solid and can handle it. So that's number 4. Number 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Well, that's similar to 4. Honesty related to others, right? Honesty related to others. I think, yeah, okay. Number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. You may have to ask for help on that. Say, did I harm you at any point? Did I, by my behavior, have I hurt you in any way, to my family or friends or people I grew up with or teachers or whatever? Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Again, there's that honesty and courage, and integrity, a sense of, look, I realize I've made some mistakes, and I want to change my behavior, and I want to change the way I'm thinking, and I want to change the kind of people I hang around with, and I want to be in situations that are helpful for me to grow and not harmful. Number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful with truth. Truth is important, but truth can slice somebody in half, so you have to be also, is that person ready to hear what I have to say, or maybe I should do this with somebody else, kind of thing. And continued to take personal inventory, continued, so it's kind of a continual education, personal education, to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Again, honesty with self. And in my life, I've been very fortunate, because I have had the experience of having mentors that help me to go through all that I've gone through. Okay, I think that's about it for now.
Okay.
Any questions?
Okay.
As far as the 12 steps and stuff go, there's a quote in there, I think it's a Serenity Bear, where you got talking about character defects and realizing or changing the ones that you can change, and accepting the ones that you can't. How do you know the difference?
Well, that's where it's helpful to talk to somebody else, because you get somebody who's got kind of who you trust, who has an objective view and can say, well, can talk to you about the ones that you're struggling with, that you're not sure about. Oftentimes you can get good feedback from somebody like that, because it's kind of almost like what's called a discernment. You're trying to decide, okay, which is better, or which can I own up to, or which ones actually are in need of correction? Is that what you're saying? along
Yes,
that
I mean,
line?
I do the daily inventory,
Mhm.
and I
Do you
still
have a sponsor?
Huh?
Do you have a sponsor?
Yeah, I do, but he's not really involved, as much. He's an older A member that is involved with Salvation Army, but we only see him once a week, and, he's not really like an advisor or anything, or somebody I can call on a lot to, to talk to about it. But
Do
it's
you
like-
have a good friend who can do it?
Yeah, I think so.
Because it's helpful to talk to somebody else, not just trying to figure it out for yourself.
I know I still judge people, which I know I don't have a right to judge anybody. They're just different things that, that I try to work on every day, like anger and stuff like that, that I struggle with. But I am trying to make a positive, effort to correct it,
Right. Yeah, and sometimes, and part of the honesty and humility of the whole thing is to say, well, I can't figure this out for myself. So who can I go to that'll help me figure this out? So either a friend or a sponsor or even a counselor that could help you. Do you have access to a counselor?
He just quit. I finally got one that was really good, and he just quit this last week. Another good friend that I had that was in the program left the program. I do have a brother that's in recovery that's been recovering like 12 years. I can talk to him, but he's an overline truck driver, so he's only home like once a month. I just ain't had a chance to even.
Are you connected with the Salvation Army?
Yeah, I'm in the Salvation Army vocational program.
Okay. And do they have, like, for the vocational do they have people like teachers, right? They have teachers.
Yeah, they got counselors, just with that one quit, another one that's really easy to talk to. She's just overwhelmed right now. And I talked to her a little bit yesterday about a few things, and she is helpful. She is really backed up right now.
Do you have access to people who, like?
Maybe. Yeah, I think so. I think Sherry, that would be a Sherry question.
Okay.
So between Sherry and I, we know everything. That's one answer Sherry knows.
All right, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Father, just so you know, we've spent the last week doing a little bit of history of the Jesuit order, Loyola, where the universities are.
I don't think he ran with the bulls, though, because I don't think that was going on then.
I think you're right. Yeah, that might have been because of. So I think there might be some questions that are outside of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Your history.
Anything's fine.
Okay.
I'm open to anything, so any question you want to ask is fine. Yeah.
When you became a priest, well, when you had that reckoning that you wanted to be a priest, were you reluctant, or were you like full speed ahead and just talking into it?
Was I reluctant or?
Just like so excited about it that.
I was surprised. I was kind of shocked. It just didn't fit to where I was. I mean, I didn't think it did fit to where I was. So I was, did I jump for joy? No, I broke into a sweat. And I was sitting there in my office, and I thought, good Lord, where did that come from? And I was driving home that afternoon. I was working in San Jose and living out near the San Los Gatos area, which is about 20 minutes away. I was driving down the freeway, and I thought to myself, well, what kind of a priest do I want to be? And the clear as a bell came in. A Jesuit, of course. Now, it's interesting because growing up a Catholic in a parish, as I did in South Pasadena, California, the priests were the parish priests, the guys who, were in parishes, or any religion has people who are, right there. And whereas the Jesuits were guys who had taught me, who were friends of mine. And so that, I thought, well, yeah, okay. But then it really, once I had a very full dating life. I started dating in the 8th grade. We had a very precocious 8th grade class. So I was very familiar with the dating scene, right? So I'm 23 years old. And I had a sports car, which I had dreamed about I used to draw when I was in college, and if the class was boring, I would draw this car and the lines of it and everything. And then I worked in the summers, and my grandmother helped me out, and then I bought it. It was you can Google it. It was a 1962 Austin Healey. Great car, low to the ground, you know, cornered well. I had a good friend in the Coast Guard who had a Corvette, and he and I would go at it each other. You know, he'd take me on the straightaways, but I'd take him on the corners. He just couldn't handle a corner, but he was faster on the straightaway. So, I mean, I had this, you know, I was kind of in some way a bit of a playboy, and so this was kind of really a radical shift to go into the Jesuits. So yeah, it was a surprise, and but it worked, and I've been in it for 50 years, and I'm very peaceful with it. And you used to say join the Navy and see the world, but I went in the Jesuits, and I've gone all over the place. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tony.
Yes, okay. So in this one statement, it says, you make suggestions like asking God for the courage to name their moral failures, be they at home or at work or in any other situation. So it says that you're asking them to seek God for their guidance. But how do you bridge that gap between somebody who's in business, a CEO of a business? How do you expect them, or how do you make them change their hat to one hat at home or work?
Yeah.
Spiritual.
Yeah, they wear all those hats on the same head. So,
right, I got that. I
got
that.
Yeah. Well, this is a good question, because some people are compartmentalize things.
Right.
Like men, we tend to do that a bit more than women, I think. Yeah, to get the guy to see, well, what you do on Sunday or Saturday if you're Jewish, what you do is intimately connected with everything else in your life. Yeah, because some people don't. It takes time for them to see that.
Their moral fiber. You know, how do you change somebody's moral fiber? You talk about the people come to your retreats. Are they there by choice, or they?
Oh yeah, they came on. No. Oh yeah, no, but you can, you know, and that retreat, by the way, is in chapter 1, right?
Yes. No. Well, yeah.
Oh, you got the book.
Yeah.
Okay. It's called a commuter retreat. So I did it up in Canada more than I've done it here. So it's a retreat that you make while going to work or whatever. It's 6 days long. Person sees me once a day for an hour. That's something you might think about. And then you give them various spiritual homework, whatever, to pray over, and teach them how to pray and what kind of thing. I did a lot of that up in Canada with business people. Well, some people, everybody who made it, including a guy who had a Mormon background, who did it twice, 2 years in a row. So it really appealed to a lot of different people.
So they're searching.
Yeah, they're searching, not just searching like they're just starting to search, but searching to go deeper and to see other connections and that kind of thing. It was voluntary. Mostly men did it, some women, and mostly Catholic, but not all. That was how it went. Some people would just, it was what they wanted. They had a hunger for something different, and they didn't know how to get there, and so we meet up. But there are some people, and this is difficult for somebody like myself, because I have the same gift my father had, which was sales. And when you're selling a product, whatever it is, you don't want people to not buy it, even if it's religion, right? You want people to like you, the salesperson, right? Well, there's some people who you can't convince, and Jesus says in the gospel that if a town doesn't listen to what you're saying, wipe the dust from your feet and move on. So occasionally I've had to do that. I hate to do that, because it's hard for me to say, you know, not that I failed, but that it didn't work out. So sometimes it just, doesn't. But my experience up in Canada was very positive. A lot of people did this retreat. One guy built it into his schedule and told me, I'm just doing it every year. Did it 5 years. But it hasn't really caught on here. I've pitched it. I've talked to some business people here in town, and I've said, I've got this retreat. Vegas is a real different place. They seem to be happy with how they're being fed at church or at synagogue or at the mosque or whatever. That's where they, and to go deeper hasn't really occurred to them. It's interesting. Whereas in Canada, they wanted to go deeper. Very interesting. Yeah.
Question. On stage 6, this is the stage of universal ethical principles. Can you elaborate more on the stages of universal principles of justice and dignity?
You're talking about the 6 stages of moral development, right?
It's on chapter 3.
Yeah, let me get that out. Let's see, where have I got that?
Yeah, stages.
I wrote down something about that last night. Here we go. Well, first of all, has everybody read that section about the stages of moral development?
Yeah, 3 or 4 times.
Judge, have you? Okay, so let me just say there's 6. This is Lawrence Kohlberg and Carol Gilligan, who were two. He was a professor at Harvard. She was one of his students. He did this whole study of men and boys on moral development. She decided, how can we apply this to girls and women? And so she did her thing on that. But each stage of moral development has a question. And the stages of moral development are, there's 6. You're talking about number 6. So
Yeah, number 6.
yeah, but why don't we start just so I can, for those who don't know about this, right? So stage 1, which is called the infantile stage, but you can be in stage 1 at the age of 14, 18, 21, 30, whatever. Stage 1 question is, what can I get away with? Right? So the little kid says, yeah, what can I get away with here? But the older guy, who's the executive or the financial guy at a company says, what can I get away with? What I don't pay taxes. I can, shove things into different accounts and people won't catch me. What can I get away with, right? There are people like that. The second stage, which is also in the infantile stage, is what's in it for me? Okay, which is a selfish stage, not a selfless stage. Number 3, how will this decision affect my relationships? Okay, so that's a good thing because women, particularly on the average, are more relationship oriented than men on the average. There are exceptions to that. But how will this decision, and that was really basically what was going on for me at the company when that guy walked in and said, you're making us look bad. So how will my decision to tell him I'm not going to follow you guys, what will that do to my relationship with them? Well, will they say, well, you're not a team player, or, we don't want you around, or whatever. How will this decision affect my relationships? The good part of that is the golden rule, right? Yeah. Do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. The bad part of it is the peer pressure. But here's a thing that it seems to me is really important here is finding new friends. If you ended up in jail or ended up on drugs or something else, you don't want to go back to that same neighborhood or that same group of people because that's going to take you right back. You got to find a new situation, and stage 3 is about that, getting getting new friends, getting employment, getting a new life. Number 4, how does this decision maintain fairness, order, and uphold both the letter and the spirit of the law? So if you're in that stage, you're really concerned not only about yourself, but about the common good, of society. 5, what are my responsibilities to others in society in this situation? What are my responsibilities? So this person is moral, wants to do the right thing, lives according to internal principles, has a sense of integrity, has a sense of respect for others and their right to private property and their right to exist, and just wants to know, okay, well, how can I improve and in this whole journey? But number 6 is the person who really has got it together. What do I believe is the truly right thing to do? Okay, even if it's difficult, even if it's at personal cost. Let me give you an example. There was a guy in Canada, his name is Pat. He worked for a large electrical company, and he had been with them for maybe 15 years. And he was in good position. He had a good job in the company. When he came to talk to me about the situation he was in, he said, I have to tell you, he said, about 7 or 8 years ago, I had a client, and I got to know that client, and I got to know what their issues are and what their needs are and everything. And just the other day, my boss asked me if I would take on the same client as I'd had before. And I don't think I can do that, he said, because of all the information I know from the past. I think this gives me a conflict of interest. So, but he said, I know this. And why I'm coming to you, he said, is because I need something in me to go and do something about it. I need some kind of courage here to go to my boss and say, look, I can't do this because of this. And I said, well, what's the problem? And he said, well, my boss is kind of strict. It was a woman, by the way. It's kind of strict and what's the word? What's a strict boss? What's that?
Authoritarian.
Authoritarian, yes, authoritarian. And he was afraid that if he said that he can't take this person for a client, that he'd lose his job, or just stay where he is forever. So I have another book called The Masculine Spirit, which is a book on helping men to become more reflective. And so I had him read that, and we went over it together. And gradually he began to see, well, yeah, okay, I could lose my job, but what's more important to me? Is it that, or is it my sense of self and my family? The family comes in here, of course. If I lose my job, well, I've got kids. All that stuff comes in. But eventually he got to the point where he realized that really the most important thing for him was to be honest with his boss. By the time he got to that point, he had gone through a lot of emotional stuff. So he wasn't going to come on angry. He wasn't going to come on aggressive. He was just going to sit down with her and say, look, here's the situation from the past, and this is why I don't think I can take this person. And because he had worked through his own stuff, when he sat down with her, she was not defensive because he wasn't aggressive. He was just laying out the facts. And she saw the facts and she said, you're right. And she said, you don't have to take the client. But he had to get through, you have to get through the emotional stuff in yourself before you go, because you don't want to attack the other person. That's bad. You have to get And you might end up with a situation like that in some kind of job placement that you want to, like something that's bothering you, and maybe there's something you see that's not right, something that's perhaps unethical, and which is very possible. So what do you do with that? And you have to, if you're going to bring it to the attention of somebody, you've got to do it in a way that they're going to hear what you say rather than get mad at you for what you say. Yeah.
I was reading in the chapter, I focused on this, statement in religious terms in the Christian community, ethical things are called sin. I thought like.
Sin City. Pardon me. Sorry, here.
I went to a thing of like, you have a mother, and this mother has no money or whatever, and she has kids and they're hungry. And she goes and she steals food for her children. What is she that's an ethical failure, and she couldn't be in stage 6, or what?
Did you ever see the play Les Miserables?
No.
Yeah. That's that story.
Yeah.
The guy has a family. Has he lost his job?
The little girl is.
Before that, the reason he went to prison. He went to prison because he stole bread to feed his family.
Yeah, he stole bread because his family didn't have enough money for food.
But we don't live in them times. We got food banks everywhere. If you don't have food for your kid, it's just bad planning. Because there's so many things. You can walk down, there's 30 food banks just within a couple miles a year.
But on the other hand, she might have been somewhere, like you were in Louisiana, so she might have been somewhere down there, and you might not have had that opportunity. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. I wouldn't put anything on her.
Yeah, so there would be no judgment.
No judgment.
Yeah, if you live in some poor community.
Yes, sir. This Jesuit thing, do you guys have a concept of like divine self?
Divine self?
Deeper part of yourself that you would want to try to develop a relationship with, and of course I think this is deep within our psyches. And also I want to ask you about how I think the outer self, the ego, is one of the main problems, and anything in there about overcoming that?
Well, you don't want to get completely free of your ego, because then
there's a healthy
you'd be floating around without legs and arms and things. I don't know. Can we take a break and then come back to that?
Absolutely.
I'll come back to you, and it'll give me a time to think. But it's 11.
Yeah, take a 5-6 minute break.
6 minutes.
We have a student who graduated and came into
Great.
Father Max, is this book available in the library? Do you know?
Yes, it is, I think.
Okay, well then you can have your stack of shit down.
Okay.
Yeah. Check and see if it's available. Yeah.
Well, I will, I'm gonna go back to school.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hi.
Very excited to be listening to you.
Oh, thanks. Oh.
You sure? That was a long time.
Mercy nuns.
Mercy nuns and Augustine.
So you're working here in
Well, not working, looking for a job. Basically, because I've got some instructions, as a lawyer, I recommend pharmaceutical. It's a very high paying job. I've got a doctor of public health who's also 70 years old. My goal is to keep on, I mean, I think you have your question.
Sure.
Yeah, something like that. I just don't. There's a lot of big words there that I don't think the same.
Not the vacancy in business.
And the law.
Yeah, but how would you react to business?
I know it says it in there, but like.
Well, some people are really ethical and are struggling to stay ethical in a very toxic environment.
Oh, you read that? That's what I watched.
I mean, I meet a lot of really good people, even here. But yeah, then of course the bad people, the bad seed.
Take a break.
Sure, I'm going to take a break. Yeah, thanks. Oh, and I need to use it.
You know where the bathrooms are?
And down here somewhere?
Yep, right outside, then go up the ramp. And
That's what I thought.
You know what, too? It's cold. Well, that's supposed to.
I'm a student. I live in.
You don't start at the beginning, you kind of start off where everyone else is. Then you do it yourself.
Yes.
Learning already. Been doing it now for teaching. You don't have to start off each class, you don't have to have a big classroom. Drop yourself in the middle.
Sound like what they used to do back in the house of church. Right? You got kindergarten through 12th grade, all in the same school, same classroom.
And it's a 4-month cycle, so 4 months is up, it kind of goes back to the first learning again. I start at a cycle.
So you do
Come back, it's just a 4-month cycle. So you're learning something.
I have 2 sisters.
So,
And an older brother. More so the other way around.
Yeah, oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, you felt like
It was fun. You too.
Yeah.
There's one big factor, maybe one question. Mission. Yeah, everybody does. That's what we have.
Done so far, so we click play.
Yeah, my plan is
Maximize the screen. Right now, we're at live.
well, first thing is just to learn more about what it is.
What is everybody reading? Going on to something?
I just spend most of my time on it. The other part of what I do
Send it to.
Oh, I love
Who's coming back?
Ed? So, on the next, you realize after so that 50 seconds, that guy.
Oh, the fourth? Oh, that's right.
Fourth is
Fifth
taking
is
the
what-
last.
Yeah.
Fifth is-
That's what I did.
So.
2 days.
When you were talking.
2 days.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You gotta watch Tony, she knows everything.
Yeah, no, I don't, I just wanted to find out everything. So,
That book is on Kindle, and it's also in his library. Let me know if it doesn't work out. Let me know and I'll.
oh, I'll get a copy of it no matter what, even if the director lets me use his, it'll take me no time at all to read it. When you were talking about the 12 steps, do you deal with one? Is that necessary, or do you?
Yeah, well, it depends on the big ones. They're not just coming on drugs. I hear a lot of confessions in Vegas, a lot of sex addiction.
Right, yeah, when you know, you know that.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think, I went through, I found recovery when I was 46.
Just last year.
Yeah, right, yeah, like 11 years ago.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But once I became home and grew up, I owned all that. I had a strong foundation. Yeah, well, I have a more reduced stability now. But that originally was just for my recovery, but who knew?
Sure.
That it's gonna be.
Sure.
I.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a good, it's outstanding.
It is on every level in one's life, because when you do that first step, you can put anything in there, you can put a person's name, your neighborhood, you can put anything, and I power this over this now.
Sure. Sure.
It's very good on many levels, any levels. Another bottle of water?
One more.
Okay. So Father Max, basically you.
Oh, wait, we're still on break.
Okay. All right, I'll leave you alone. Give me a break.
Give me a break.
Yeah, I like it. No, I don't.
Everybody, let's get ready for round two. Sherry has lunch. Sherry has brought pizza. The good news is it's 100 degrees outside, so the pizza's not getting cold.
That's great news. Way to look on the bright side.
It's my job.
Very optimistic.
Somebody's got to do that.
Eternal optimist.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, everybody, we're back for round two. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, well, wait a minute. I got to answer. What's your first name?
Billy.
Billy. Okay, so a couple of things that came to my mind. One is that in the Catholic religion, unlike the Eastern, Christian, let's say Christian, unlike the Eastern religions would see the divine self as you become like a god yourself, whereas Christians would say, well, we have a relationship with God, and but I am me. I'm a human being. I'm made in the image and likeness of God, but I'm not God.
Yeah, well, born to sin.
So that would be. But the other thing that struck me was on the ego question. In the back of the book, on page 206 and 207, there's a prayer that came out of my own experience. It's which I call a prayer, freedom prayer. This has had a big impact on me and a lot of people that I've shared it with over the years. It's a prayer where you in fact, when I remember one time sharing this at a church up in Canada, and a guy came up to me afterwards and said, "Are you in AA?" And I said, "No, why?" He said, "Because that prayer is a lot like AA." So,
what page is it on?
On page 206. So, what it's a prayer to help you deal with excessive emotional needs and paralyzing fears, which we all have. Fear is the basic human emotion, so we all got some kind of fear. There's the fear of failure, the fear of change, the fear of the unknown, fear of rejection, lots of kinds of fear. Fear of failure, fear of making a mistake, it's all kinds of fears. And some of them you just work through. I mean, you're good at that. You faced fears before and you work through them, that's fine. But some fears just stop you in your tracks and you cannot move. And this prayer has been very effective in helping people to get free of that paralyzing fear. And the same thing goes with excessive emotional needs. Like we all have the need to be thanked, to be appreciated, to be respected, but it becomes excessive when you'll compromise your values in order to get it, whatever it is, appreciation, a friendship, whatever. So what you do is there's different steps to it, and they're listed in the back here. It's a very simple prayer, really. You have to believe in God. That's number one. But if you do believe in God and you believe in the power of prayer, you simply name the problem, right? Let's say, I have an excessive need to be thanked. Now we all need to be thanked. So you're not praying for that no one will ever thank you again. No, you're praying for freedom from the excessive need for it, so that if you're not thanked, you're not going to shoot the person or write them off your Christmas list or whatever. So you get a sense of balance. The sense of balance here. It's so the thing is, you name the problem, excessive need to be thanked, let's say, and then or in my case, I have an excessive need that goes back to childhood. I was the first child of my parents for 7 years, and we lived with my grandparents, my mother's parents, during the war, and I was the only grandchild for 7 years. So what was I? King.
Yes.
And special. Spoiled. Yes. Yeah. So that stuff kind of hangs around in your psyche over the years and comes out in various ways. So I have, and I'll admit it, step 5 or step 4, I'm admitting it. I have an excessive need to be special. Now, but I've learned through this prayer not to let that lead me or guide me or conquer me or whatever, rule me, right? So, but the thing is, you name the thing. Okay, I have an excessive need to be special. Then, whenever you find yourself in that situation where you're feeling uncomfortable because you're not being thanked, you're not being appreciated, whatever it is, as soon as you realize you're in that space, and it's helpful to be reflective, which I am, then you simply say to God, look, I realize I'm in that space. Please free me from the excessive need to be. Now that could really pay off in a work situation, because if you're in a work situation and you're doing your job to the best of your ability, and somebody doesn't appreciate that, because you're going to run into people who are oblivious to what you're doing, and they don't appreciate what you're doing. Well, if you have an excessive need to be appreciated, that's going to throw you into a tizzy. It's going to throw you into depression, might even throw you into quitting. But if you take that and say, okay, God, I know I got this excessive need to be appreciated. Free me from the need to be appreciated by that person.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, this thing is effective. And then what happens is, I mean, you only say it at the time it's going on, okay, when it's happening. And then you just leave it in God's hands. But boy, it really is effective. So that the next time this person doesn't show appreciation, you say, it's their problem, not mine. You know, I'm doing a good job. They don't see it. You know, I'm not responsible for their blindness. And so you're at peace, and you keep on going, and you know, and if it pops up again, which it might with somebody else, use the prayer again.
Oh, okay. Well, I work at Walmart.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead, he was first.
He was first.
In chapter 3 of your book, in the section Sin and Salvation, I was interested in Proverbs 9:13 through 18's definition of the word folly, and also the quote from the book of Becoming a Woman of Excellence and their definition of sin. I was wondering if you can elaborate more on that section.
Yeah, what page is that again?
It's page 60.
60?
Yes. Stage 3.
So, ask that again.
I was just wanting you to elaborate more on that section, and more specifically those two books.
On and your what page? No, what page are you on?
59.
59.
Or well, 58 and 57.
50. Yeah, okay. Well, let's go to Cynthia Held first. That's the one, the quote that you're looking at, right? Sin, whatever weakens your reason, impairs the tenderness of your conscience, obscures your sense of God, or takes off the relish of spiritual things. Whatever weakens your reason. Let me ask you, what would you say weakens your reason? What? Give me some examples.
Rude people.
Rude people. What weakens your reason?
Alcohol, drugs.
Aha!
What did he say?
Alcohol and drugs. Yeah.
There you go.
You're tired.
Pardon me?
You're tired.
So tired. You're
Self-doubt.
tired.
Tired.
Tired. Weakens your reason. You don't have enough food. You don't have enough nourishment. So you're, yeah.
Thoughts of
The need to
self-limitation.
provide for your family.
Your spiritual beliefs.
Thoughts of self-limitation.
Thoughts of self-limitation. Yeah. So lack of self-image.
Self-doubt, maybe.
Self-doubt. Yeah, that can get in there. Yeah. Okay. Anything else that weakens your reason?
Greed.
How
Greed.
do you spell that?
Greed. Greed.
Oh,
Avarice.
yes, greed and avarice. Certainly, that'll weaken your reason. Yeah.
Lust.
Lust. Yeah.
What about grief?
Envy.
Grief.
Grief. Grief. Yeah, if it's really intense. Yeah. So lots of things can weaken your reason. Some things are not bad. I mean, grief is important to grieve things, and the bad stuff though is the drugs and the alcohol, and which lead you to do things that are not reasonable. I think that's probably of that quote. I think that's the one that's or impairs the tenderness of your conscience, which means that what you were taught is right and wrong, for some reason, has been kind of diminished, and you're now doing things that you were told not to do when, you know, by people who were perhaps your parents or other people along the way, teachers, coaches, whatever. Whatever leads you in the direction of harm to yourself, to other people, or to society would be in that definition, it seems to me. Okay.
And the
All right.
Proverbs, the Proverbs definition of folly.
Okay, now where's that one? That's on
That's one page back.
Proverbs. A variety of words in the Bible describe humanity's tendency towards the moral negative. Proverbs. The word folly refers to the root of ethical failure. A fool is one who deliberately releases a harmful influence on others. Yeah, well, a fool in that sense is the bad sponsor, the bad mentor. You make sure you get the right mentor. You don't want somebody who will, you know, there's a great thing, the Jersey Boys, you know, the Jersey Boys show, or the movie, where you at the first part of the movie, there's an older guy who, you know, the guy who really has a terrific voice. Frankie Valli, thank you. Frankie Valli has a great voice, and this older guy wants to take him under his wing and has to educate him, he says. Well, what he does is he gets him involved in a heist. So they're gonna stealing rugs or something from a store. So that's the bad mentor. You don't want the bad mentor. You want the good mentor who says, no, don't go there, don't do that, you know. And the thing is, too, that you don't want to be a fool for others. So you want to be the kind of person that helps others follow the ethical path, right? You want to get to that place where you become a mentor to others.
I had a question concerning that section.
Well, hang on just a second, if you don't mind. I just want to think about this in terms of my own background. Okay, I'll give you an example. When I was moving over here, see, I moved over here 3 years ago, but before I moved over, I was teaching at the university in Henderson, Regis University. No longer there. I was teaching ethics, actually. And a friend of mine in California said, oh, I know this guy in Vegas who can help you to get to know other people there, in case you move over. So I said, okay, fine. And so I'm always looking for, you know, people who will help connect me to other people so I get enough business to survive, because I'm an entrepreneur. So I met with this guy, and okay, interesting guy. But there was something in my, I thought, there's something about this guy. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. Well, I'll see him again and see what happens. Second time I had dinner with him, I thought, oh no, this guy is not the guy for me. You have a sense for somebody is not going to lead you in the right direction, and I just knew intuitively this is not a good guy for me, and I never called him back. So some people are good for you, and you want their help, and some people are not, and you need kind of a sixth sense to say, okay, I think this is not the right person for me, and you got to be able to say no to that person. Otherwise, you're a fool. Now, somebody who hasn't said anything yet.
Oh, I was going to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Why were stages 3 and 6 so important?
Well, because for women, 3 is probably the most important because of the relationship issue, right? 6 is for both is the most important because that's the most honorable person that you can be. Okay, somebody who hasn't asked a question, or the guy with that, I was going to say, I love that thing you've got there. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Where do you believe we are in present day in our society in these 6 steps?
What a great question. You mean, no, do you mean the valley of the Vegas Valley, or do you mean the world?
Well, yeah, in the world.
Wow. That's a heck of a question, yeah. There's some, every day if you read the paper, every day there's something going on that's not right. And you have to have a real strong sense of yourself not to follow, or not to say, well, everybody else is doing it, so why don't I do it? No, that's going away from your integrity. Really, you meet people, though. I meet people who are really strong in their sense of self, and they look at what's happening around them and they say, I pray for everybody who's harmed by other people's actions, but I'm not going to change the way I am, because this is who I am, and this is where I'm comfortable in myself as a good person. There is I don't know if it's in the book or not, but a few years ago I met a guy named Hank Shea. You can tell me whether that's in the book. And he had these 10 lessons learned from white-collar criminals. Is that in the book somewhere? 10 lessons learned from white-collar criminals.
We only have chapter 3.
Only have chapter 3. Oh, well, it's probably later in the book. Very good thing. I think it's in here somewhere. 10 lessons learned from white-collar criminals. And he, if I can find it real quickly here. Let's see. Who would that be? 10 lessons.
You want me to try to find it while you're talking?
Yeah, would you? Oh, yeah. You have the.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, here, you can borrow mine. Okay. Yeah, one of the lessons is, what the lessons have to do with basically not following the wrong path, right? The slippery slope, or just this one time. I'll do it just this one time, and everything will be okay, right? And then you're off and down the slippery slope. Yes. Okay. Did you find it?
No.
Okay. Keep looking. Hank Shea is the name of the guy. 10 lessons learned from white-collar criminals. Now, let's see. I need to clear my mind for a minute. Who has not asked a question yet?
Joanne?
And wants to?
Yes, sir. If you have a friend or a relative, from your perspective, that has any type of addiction, what is the best way to go upon helping them when they are seeking help?
Okay, that's a question. Who can answer that question? Because I'm not involved in addiction stuff.
Judge, can you? On chapter 3, when it says, I don't understand our actions, where I do not do what I want to, but I do everything I hate.
Oh, that's Paul.
Right, and that's what brought me to that, as far as lack of sleep, drink too much, taking drugs, and
sure, all of those
right.
would weaken your reason and would lead you to do things that aren't right. So what's the question then?
The question basically was pertaining to that, as far as how to help someone who is seeking help. How do you come across to help them the best way you can?
Well, you help them by giving them the resources they need to.
As far as like spiritual help.
Well, spiritual help? Do you know anybody who is good in that?
I have a Reverend Ron. Yeah.
Well, then that's the person to lead it to. Yeah.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Michael, if you were to take the 12 steps, can you break the 12 steps down to 3 steps?
Okay.
First third of it is you have to believe in a higher power, believe in God. The second third would say get your own house in order. The third step was, now you can help someone with their house.
Right.
There you go. You have to do it in that order. So until your house is in order, don't worry about anyone else.
Well, that's the thing, everything's in order, so it's like.
Well, then, if you're working your steps, and you're working with a good sponsor, that question's answered, right? So I'm just telling you that what we try and do when you're early in your addiction or you're early in your recovery is you're so excited about it, you want to help everybody else. So what you do is you would hang around with guys who are active in their addiction, but your stuff's not together. So all we do is if I can give you an example, if your recovery was a rocking chair, and you were to stand on those two arms of the rocking chair, because it's very unstable. It's difficult just to stand there. And early in your recovery, it still rocks a lot, and then you were to hang out with guys who their sole job is to pull you off that chair, when your job is to try and pull them up. You're not going to win that battle. The person down is going to pull you off that chair way before you pull them up. But the longer you are in your recovery, it's like the curves of the chair tend to flatten out, and it becomes a more stable base. So once you've been in recovery long enough, that chair is strong enough that if you decide you want to help somebody up, their goal is still to pull you down. They may still win, but you have a better chance. And the question is, how do I help somebody? If you're asking that question, you're not yet ready. You're not yet ready, because when you're ready, you'll know it, and then don't be trying to do it, because you're going to end up being pulled down.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, anybody over there hasn't asked a question?
Can you elaborate more on stage 7?
Stage 7. Yeah, that's. Okay, stage 7. Give me a page.
No, stage 6.
63.
No,
There's
a new
stage 7 in there.
They say ecological, metaphysics and stuff.
Well, he came to that later in his life. But let's see, where is it?
It's at the bottom, the last paragraph, page 63.
Page
63.
Okay. Stage 7 occurs at the ontological, which is a philosophical term for being, the nature of being, which is deeper than the moral one. For the believer, it is rendering to God that which is God's. Stage 7 involves ultimate moral maturity and involves the possibility of dying for what you believe in, I would add, because that's what happened to Thomas More. Integrated and strong commitments, and who has the in order to do what they feel they're asked to do. Who are people like I'm thinking of Miguel Pro. Miguel Pro was a priest in Mexico during the time of the persecution of the church down there, and he was studying to be a priest in Mexico, and then the persecution came and he had to leave, otherwise he couldn't finish his studies. So he went to California, Spain, finished his studies, and then decided to go back to Mexico, even though going back to Mexico meant the possibility that he would be killed. Goes back to Mexico and is saying mass, doing services in secret, because it was against the law. So he was going to various places and hiding out and saying mass, and going to the next place, but not doing it publicly because it was against the law. But anyway, he eventually got caught by the police, and he was tried and convicted. And I think the way in which he died is, to me, is kind of a symbol of number 7. So he took, it was a firing squad. So he took, he had a Bible, small Bible, and a rosary. Rosary is a beaded thing with a cross on the end. He had each one of them in his hands, one on this hand, one on this hand. And he was given the option of a blindfold, and he said, I don't want a blindfold. And he held his hands out. And when the order was given to shoot, he yelled out, Vivo Cristo Rey, long live Christ the King, and they shot him and he died. Now that's, to me, is 7. That's the ultimate, that's paying the ultimate price. And doing it voluntarily, that's it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Being that you're a Jesuit priest and you say you're the only Jesuit here, do you have an actual church that you work from? And if you do, is there a location? Is the Jesuit community open to non-Jesuits?
Well, so I come from California, what we call the California province, and so most of the Jesuits in that province, geographical province, California, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and Hawaii, most of them are in California and Arizona. So we have high school and universities and guys doing other kinds of things, working with gangs in East LA and all kinds of stuff, right? Greg Boyle really does some great work over there. So there was this, the bishop here, Bishop Joseph Pepe, met my religious superior about 8 years ago in California. And Bishop Pepe said, we have desperate need for help. Not only has the population expanded here in the valley, but the Catholic population has expanded. And we don't have enough priests and we don't have enough churches. So my superior said, well, we have resources we can make available, but we don't want a parish because we're educators. But if you want help with education, we'll see what, or other things like maybe prison ministry or hospital ministry, something like that. We'll be happy to. So a letter went out looking for volunteers. I was in Canada, and this letter came out, and I saw a letter. I thought that's interesting, but went on with my life up there until about a couple of years later, when making a retreat, we make an annual 8-day retreat, silent retreat, where you see somebody once a day for an hour so you can get your stuff worked out. It occurred to me to volunteer for Las Vegas. Now it was interesting because when I realized I had a vocation back at the age of 24, and by then my father and I were in better shape than we were when I was earlier on, but we weren't totally there yet. But so I said to my dad, look, I was living in Northern California, can I leave my stuff with you, going in the Jesuits? He said, how much time will you have before you actually go in? And I said, oh, probably about a week after I get my stuff to you. And he said, great, let's go to Vegas. So we did. We came over here, and
I mean, not to cut you off, I just don't understand. Where do you worship?
well, okay, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So anyway, I volunteered, but it turned out we were hoping for 3, and I'm the one who volunteered. So I came, but I'm a self-starter. Okay. I live in a parish. I live at St. Christopher's, which is up on Bruce and Lake Mead area. I live there. However, I live there and I pay rent to live there. So I'm not a parish priest. I'm involved all over this valley. Ed invites me to do something. I do things all over the place. But I'm an educator rather than a parish priest. Now, on Sundays, I say 2 masses almost every Sunday at Christ the King, which is on Torrey Pines in Tropicana. The first mass is in Spanish, second is in English, 1:30 and 4.
And Tuesday. Right.
Tuesday at the cathedral at noon, 12:10, which is on the north end of the strip, just north of the Encore. I have the 12:10 mass every Tuesday, except during August when I get out of here and go to Canada for vacation. Ah, found it.
I only
Hang
found
Shay.
I only found the reference, I didn't find the top
Oh,
10 things.
where was the reference?
Right here, which is 153.
Okay, and what chapter? It'll be in that chapter. Okay. But does that answer your
Yes, it
question?
does. Thank you.
Okay.
You've asked a question, right?
I just have most of us here, like I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure I can speak for most of us, we live in like a blue collar world.
Sure. I live in a blue collar neighborhood.
Yeah, and so like most of us are going to find jobs like at a hotel or Walmart or even Zappos where there's hundreds of employees and you're just a number. And you're going to see people in every stage, from bosses to regular employees. And I mean, you can, like what I do, you can live with your high integrity and ethics. Don't steal. Don't go get high with these people at lunch, or don't sneak on breaks extra long. But you can't go around and literally. You see someone stealing a sandwich, tell on them, because there's hundreds of employees and there's every gambit of,
Sure.
from stage 1 to 6. As long as you do what's ethically right, and
Right.
and just
you
like
don't
you
have
said,
to
you got
snitch
an
on
obligation to help others, and don't hang out with the sooner or later you're going to start to quell with the people that are doing right. And just and that's the most you can do is do everything ethically right and everything, but you can't go around and like literally telling somebody or something.
Right.
But as long as you're doing what's right, you'll find yourself hanging out with those people that are the ones that are doing right, and your actions will just show for itself, and you lead by example, not by that's what I find out most, and that's the way most of well, I don't know about most people, that's the way it is where I work.
Sure.
And I'm sure a lot of places I ever worked are like that. So, it's like, as long as you just do what's ethically right and you sleep at night.
And stay with the people who are doing what's ethically
Exactly.
right. And if you
and
see
start-
somebody who's not doing something that's ethically right,
stay away from them. Because there's bosses not doing stuff right, and there's people stuff doing. I can see if it's something extremely wrong, maybe tell them, but not something. So there's so many
well, you
little
wouldn't tell
things
them
going
though.
wrong.
If somebody is doing something extremely wrong,
Yeah, of course,
then
that's
you
a
go on
given.
an anonymous phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So they don't know who you are.
But there's so much little
Disguise
bad
their
things
voice.
going wrong.
Make it sound like a woman.
Yeah, but I haven't
Tell 'em,
came
look,
across
there's
that.
something going on in the department so forth.
Yeah,
it's
I
not
haven't came
right.
across that situation,
Okay.
but you come across situations where people are just doing everything you can imagine wrong all day long. So, it's just like, all you do is try and do your best and just,
Okay.
Now,
Yes.
people over here, anybody hasn't
This
asked a
fellow
question?
hasn't.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you could clear up a little bit of the stigma about the black priests or the gentleman that wear the black pope. My bad.
You mean what do you mean the black?
The general.
The general spirit.
Now where'd you hear about that?
Online.
Internet.
Internet. I don't know where that came from. Really, that's from way in the past, and we don't even, it doesn't even come into our consciousness. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know. You know more about that than I do.
I think it's a lack of light, not that they're a black pope.
No, it was, I don't know, we've had some issues with people over the years, and we've been kicked out of a few countries, and so.
They got some crazy stories on the internet about him.
I bet you do, yeah. But I'm still here in Vegas. That's the important thing for me. Yes.
Oh, I just had a question. It was connected with Malika's question to you, but it's kind of personal. I'm just introduced into Jesuits. I had never heard of them.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard of the
Loyola University in New Orleans?
In Louisiana.
In New Orleans.
I knew
That's
that.
Jesuit.
But as far as you being a priest,
Ah.
are you like a Catholic priest?
Yes,
You don't marry?
yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you don't marry and.
Yeah,
like that.
sorry. I'm
She was
taking.
proposing.
I was just wondering, you know, if it was the same, you know, if you.
That's right.
The same.
You got it. You're on the right track. Did you
Thank
find
you.
it?
Extra credit for that.
Tina,
I'm still looking.
still looking, all right. 10 lessons learned from
Did you ask a
white collar
question,
criminals.
Fred?
I think,
Yeah.
In what ways can we mature spiritually and what was the second part? And how is that beneficial in our lives, like in our jobs and in our families? How is that
In what ways can you?
yeah, in what ways can you gain?
That's good. Good question. Let's see. It would be helpful if you went to church, number one. Do you go to church?
No.
Ah. Okay. Let's see. That you have to start somewhere. So, were you ever baptized anything? What? Okay. So, you going to the Mormon church would be the first. If that's your choice, then that would be the first thing to start going to church, and get to know the people, because that's where your support system is going to come from, because that'll be a good support system for you. And then study the Book of Mormon, right? Have you ever, when you were growing up, did they take you to the Mormon temple and all that?
I've been a few times, but yeah, I quit going to church before I was like able to go there.
Okay.
Up to the.
No, and people, I don't want to try to convert you, but you can move around. You can try other religions. You can try other things. Find what fits you, what you feel. Okay, I feel at home here. You know, whatever it is, Mormon, synagogue, whatever. But you have to have some. Goes back to what the judge said earlier. You have to have a sense of something solid in yourself before you can help the world. So I would recommend that. If you were in my situation, if I were in your situation, let's say, and I'm Catholic, and I was looking to grow in my faith, then I would want to go to the church that I'm. You know, let's say I'd like to go to church on Saturday or Sunday, and I would take part in Bible study and other things. I'd look for stuff that appeals to me, like maybe there's a prayer group, maybe a group where you can learn how to pray, you know, that kind of thing. That's how I would go. I'd go about it that way. Yeah, and then get somebody who, again, who you kind of like, trust and like, and let them help you to grow as well. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you maintain your honesty if you were working for a company? And you know, a lot of companies try to teach you how to bend the rules. We're not breaking the law, we're just bending it a little bit, like, you know, Enron and all these big companies like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and you know, the banking crisis and all that, without being a whistleblower and getting blackballed.
Well, you have choices. You may have a choice. If you have a choice to go somewhere else and work, then I'd find a company I'm comfortable with, just like a school I'm comfortable with, or a church I'm comfortable with. I'm thinking of a guy I knew in Canada who he wasn't Catholic. I'm not sure what he was, some Protestant group. And he said, I want to tell you a story, he said, about something that happened to me. I was just out of college, I was married, we had a child. And I went to work for this company. It's the first company, you know, I was all excited. You know, first company, I'm going to save the world. And after being there, you know, maybe a couple of months, his supervisor came to him one day and said, it's customary for us on Friday after work to go with the boss to Hooters. Okay? So now that you've been here a couple of months and we're happy that you're here, we want to invite you to join us. But the invite was it was more than an invite. It was like, this is what we do here. So this guy's really strong Christian. So he goes, this is his first job. He goes home, thinks about this on the way home, thinks to himself, I don't think I can do this. And if I say I'm not going to do it, will I lose my job? So goes home, talks to his wife, who's also a very strong Christian, explains the whole situation to her, and she says, you can't do it. And don't worry, you'll get another job, and God will take care of us. So he goes back the next day, and he tells his supervisor, not angrily, just says, look, this is against my beliefs, and I can't do it, and fired on the spot. Got another job, and when I met him, he was the president of a company. So you have to, in a way, and this is easy for me to say, but in a way, you have to look at the long view of life and not just the immediate, unless it's like I got to eat kind of thing, but to look at the long. Looking at life in the long sense rather than just the immediate gratification kind of thing. Yeah.
My question to you is, it's 2 parts. With integrity and morals, when you became a priest, did they get stronger, or was it?
You mean, did my integrity become stronger when I became a priest? I think the integrity grows with each time you do something that's a little more challenging than the thing before, and you do it, and you get stronger in your sense of self, and then you do another thing, and that's how I've grown. In that way.
I understand the spirituality. I consider myself to be a spiritual person, but also, I know people that are pagan religion, and they're really, really good people.
Well, if they're a pagan, it's not a religion, but it is like an atheist. Well, atheists are good people. I know. Actually, I have a very good friend here in town who's an atheist, and we get together for lunch about every other month. Terrific person. Yeah. Now, just because you're an atheist doesn't mean God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The picture of the footsteps in the sand.
Oh, that's a great, yes, go ahead.
Indicating how Jesus carries us, and it also teaches us, because it's a parable, on how we're supposed to help carry each other. How long are we required to help out each other?
How long? I'm not sure I understand. How long? What do you mean, how long? You would want to do things to help the other person. Are you saying that at some point the person goes in the wrong direction?
At some point, is it necessary to stop carrying that person?
Carrying or caring for? Caring about?
Carry.
You mean, carrying that person? Well, the person has to stand on their own 2 feet. Is that what you're saying?
Eventually.
Yeah. And you want to say something about that? You in the blue shirt there?
Okay. Here's the deal. There is a big difference between helping and enabling.
Good.
If it is something they can do for themselves, you are doing nothing but enabling them. If it is something they cannot do for themselves, but they end up in a better position afterwards, that is helping. Just because they can't do it for themselves, and it does not put them in a better position, that is not helping. So you have to look at the two things. First of all, you have to say, can Matt pick up his own job application? If he can, I'm not going to do it for him. And if he can, and I drive him to go get it, then I've done nothing but enable him in whatever the issue may be, whether it's addiction or laziness or whatever. But if he can't get there, and I can get him there, then I'm actually helping. But the second question is he better off in the future by me doing this? And let me explain to you how this works. If you cannot do a job application on your own, and I decide that I want to help you do your job application, but you didn't do it, are you better off if you get the job? Absolutely not. Because you were hired based on some skills you don't have, and you're going to be fired really quickly. Because what they're expecting is the person who filled out this application. And so they brought you in an interview for something that you can do yourself, and within 30 seconds, you're either going to be told, okay, look, you're a liar out, or you're going to get hired. Your first day on the job, you're going to be fired. When we talk about integrity, a big part of integrity is being in check with yourself. I think the higher self-esteem you have, the higher your integrity is, and they work kind of one lifts the other, one brings down the other. If you get hired for a job on your own merits, it makes it easier to keep your integrity in check. You get hired on a job not based on your merits, you start off with poor integrity, and then when you get fired, your self-esteem goes down. So both go down. When you get hired on your own merits, your self-esteem is up, so you've learned that the right choice got you to the right place. So the question is, how long do you carry? I think the first question is, do you carry? Because in many cases you don't. There can be a lot of growth in failure. And that's where we have so many issues today, is because the parents have never let some kids fail at anything. And so when they do fail, they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to pick themselves up, wipe off their knees and move on, because they've never done it. And mom and dad, or whoever's done it, grandma, is not there.
Are you saying that the fact that I flunked both semesters of geometry in high school made me a better person?
Absolutely. Because otherwise,
which I did,
you might have been thinking that
I had to do it over
you were
in
going to be a
summer
rocket scientist, and then went, okay, maybe this one isn't for me.
Right.
Maybe I better become a priest.
On the other hand, Judge Kurz, what you said was if somebody's unable and they help them, like maybe I have extremely poor eyesight and I have bad handwriting or whatever, but I have great skills. Can my friend Malika fill out the application for me? Stating my skills, not her.
But I think that if you do that,
That's
I think
hand
that
up.
you do that, and they bring you in, and they question you, your skills are there, but you might want to say, my handwriting's not very good, so I had a friend write this. But if you do it yourself, and you get in there, you're going to feel a lot better knowing it was you.
Right.
So it comes back to
that's the thing,
honesty. Comes back to honesty, having a relationship built on an honest
Well, it comes back to
foundation.
paying bills, and if I can't fill out an application, I will certainly have somebody do it for me. And I will divulge that information, but I'm not gonna.
Well, you're being honest. Well, at that point, you are being honest, right? So I think that meets the judge's test.
You know, we all have priorities. Priorities self first, family next, right? Then community next. However it goes. I mean, God, well, I mean, whatever. You have priorities, but how do I feed my family if I don't have a job? But you can't set your priority, my food, to today. Because if I can feed my family today, but I'm feeding them at a $7 an hour job, where are they tomorrow? And so my suggestion would be, learn to write better.
Sure.
And we're kind of do it that way. We're so lucky to be in the United States. We don't see kids who are walking around with their bellies bulging out of hunger. We just don't see that. And this is when people talk about this place being the land of opportunity. Other nations hate us because they see how wasteful we are and what we take for granted and what we can't do. And I'll tell you right now, there is nobody here in whatever situation you're in or wherever that cannot be successful in life. It's never too late to start, and it's never too late to do it, because in the United States we have so many programs and we have so many opportunities that the only way that you don't fail, that you don't make it, is because you don't really try.
Or because your reason is impaired by drugs or alcohol.
Well, you're not really trying when you
Has anyone else not had a chance? Because we're going to wrap it up. Everyone had their opportunity?
Yes.
I'd like to ask the judge a question.
Good.
If you have a family and you have several children, and like say 2 of them are doing well and one's doing really bad, I've been told that people are supposed to give up on that child, and I totally disagree.
Well, give up the bad work. I think by giving up on the child is when you're doing everything for them. Okay, you don't give up on them, but what you do is you have 2 other children, you have to consider them. Okay?
So concentrate on what you need.
Well, no, and that's very difficult. What you have to be able to tell your child who's struggling, right? First of all, you know that they say behind every good addict's a good neighbor. So what you be able to tell that child who's struggling is, I love you too much to watch you destroy your life. So while you are destroying your life, you don't come around me, you don't come around my kids, because it's too painful for us to watch. And that's not giving up on the child. Okay? It's making the child who you love get it together or not be around you. Because I'm telling you right now, when a kid is on drugs, an adult's on drugs, when someone's on drugs, and all of you who've known it, who've used it, you know this, the last thing you care about is love. That's the last thing you care about. The only thing you care about is high, getting high. And so if you think you're loving this child to fix this child, then you're fooling yourself.
They don't really love you.
They love drugs.
And once all the doors are closed, whether it's friends, family, or whoever, once all the enabler stops, then they reach that all-time low and they pick themselves up. Eventually they do. Unless they die, and that's just the way it's supposed to be.
I'd like to say something on that. My family did like you said, in real life, that my enablement and helped me, pay rent or anything like that wasn't helping. They basically shut the doors on me completely. I was allowed to go to my brother's house for Christmas or dinner if I was sober and wasn't on drugs, but until I was ready to help myself, my family would have nothing to do with it. Once I started getting help and started doing the right things, they won't give me support as long as I'm doing the right thing. Because the minute I slip back to the drugs and alcohol, those doors are shut. That's just the way it is. And it's helped me because it made me do the right thing. It made me get help. It made me a better person.
I don't mean to bring this back to drugs, but I just wanted to just tell you, folks die from drug addiction every day. They just do. They die of cancer every day. Addiction's a disease. When you have a child that's using, the question you have to ask yourself is, when my child dies from addiction, can I live better with myself if I'm the one that gave the child the $20 that they got high off? Or if, when they died, I did everything that the experts said I should be doing? It's just like if you have a child with cancer and they die, would you be able to live with yourself better knowing you're taking that child to treatment, trying to get them chemo, trying to do what the experts say you would do? Or if you just ignored what the experts said and said, no, we're not going to take you to get help. I'm just going to do what I feel is best, and that's to have you close to me. Because if your child dies in your house while you're using, You'll never be able to come back into that house again. Because every time you go in, you're gonna be seeing that child. And I know it's very difficult, because what you're thinking is, I love this child, but then if you love the child, right? You gotta let them mature on their own. And I know it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. But you have some other kids you gotta deal with too. And if you let them see that no matter what this one child gets away with, they're gonna learn that it's okay. And they may be good today, but we don't know where they are tomorrow. Okay? Sorry, I don't.
No, tough love.
Well, I
Okay.
wanted to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Judge,
Yeah,
and,
thank you very
and
much.
Father, thank you
Let's
for
thank the
coming.
judge and Father Max for being here. Thank you very much. You're welcome. And now we have some pizza. Tellis is here. Tellis is in the house. Tellis was also in the first graduating
I want
class.
to know where I can find one of these books at.
Let's see, well, he'll have some.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come this way.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
coming.
much for coming
I got a lot out about it.
Thank you.
It was really nice to
Yes,
meet you.
Stuart, John.
Thank you very much.
Complimentary definition I've always heard of a black coat.
Oh.
Is it intellectual and the depth of knowledge across all specialties.